Hi everyone! I know we are all so excited about the World of Enchantment mystery box that Cricut just released, and I know that we're also really excited about the adorable blush cutie that came in the box. But we're going to use some of the materials in the box today to make a mug. So Mother's Day is coming up, and my friend's son always calls her bruh, and it drives her crazy. So I thought I would make her a funny little mug for Mother's Day. So I'm going to be using the ultraviolet infusible ink that came in the box, the mugs, the 12-ounce mugs that came in the box, and then my Cricut mug press to make this mug. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to type out some text, and I'm going to use the BFC Retro Cookie font because I'm going to use warp text, and I really like this font for that look. So I'm going to type out mama, mommy, mom, and bruh. I've seen that around on shirts before. I think it's so funny. My friend will think it's funny. So that's what we're going to put on her mug today. Now, I don't like the spacing in between all of the words here, so I'm going to go up to line space. Now, you can use the up and down arrows to decrease it, but I'm going to go -6 for the spacing that I like. And then I'm going to go over here and click warp. Now the warp is a new feature, and it has this awesome slider bar here so that we'll be able to adjust our warp. Now you can see how this little panel right here is covering my text, so I'm just going to move it over to the side here because it moves around, which is awesome. Now please keep in mind that warp is an Access exclusive feature, so you can play around with it, but you do need a Cricut Access subscription in order to make it. Now that shouldn't be a problem for most of you because you should have Cricut Access to buy the Cricut Mystery Box. So I'm a really big fan of style 11 right here. That is like my current go-to style. So I'm going to click that first, and I can see that this is just a little too warped for my liking. So you can use the slider to adjust it. I'm going to go down, and I really am finding that I'm liking around a 16 for like my number adjustment for this. I've been using this style a lot, and 16 seems to be the spot that I like for most designs. Now it might not work for all designs, but it does for this one. So I'm happy with my design, and I'm going to exit out of here. Now we're going to change the color to like a lighter purple to match our ultraviolet. Okay, and I'm going to make this really big for a minute because I want to show you something. You can see right here that the M and the A, and right here that they're kind of overlapping. Now normally we would weld that so that they didn't cut into each other. That's not an option with warp, but it will auto weld after we click make it. So once we click make it, I'm going to show you guys how it works. All right, so I measured my mug, which I'll show you guys how I do. And I don't want to go bigger than 3 by 3, so I'm going to go up to my height, and my height and my width, my height is larger than my width, so I'm going to change my height to 3, and my dimensions are locked, so the width I'm just leaving as is, and I'm going to click make it because I'm happy with my design. I'm ready now. So I'm cutting it on a mat because it is infusible ink, and you can see my design here. So first thing what we're going to do is click the mirror option here because we are using infusible ink, so we want to make sure we get that mirror option. So I'm going to zoom in just so I can show you guys. It is kind of hard to tell, but it does auto weld that A and M for us. So don't worry about that. So we're going to click continue, and I have my Maker 3 already ready to go. I'm going to cut this off camera, but I'll weed it on camera just because you guys know what cutting looks like at this point. So browse all materials is what I'm going to select. And for materials, I just type in ink and press enter, and it comes up with infusible ink transfer sheet. If you have an Explorer machine with a dial, just turn your dial to custom, and you'll have this whole screen right here, and you can browse all materials just like I did. Okay, so I'm going to choose infusible ink transfer sheet, and my machine does like a little bit more pressure, so I'm going to add more pressure here. Now you can see right here this big warning sign reminding us to mirror our image. Now if I click over here, it tells me right here mirror on, so I know that I mirrored. I didn't forget that. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this, and then I'll weed it, and I'll show you guys how to set it up on camera. Okay, So now I have my mug press here. I'm going to turn that on while I go over a few things with you guys. That way by the time I'm done, this will be ready. So I'm going to turn it on. You're going to notice your light's going to be orange and it will turn green when it's preheated. Okay, so I'm going to pull up my little drawer here in my machine and I'm going to grab my measuring tape. This is like a seamstress measuring tape and I use this to measure anything that is not, like you can't use a ruler to measure. So I have my box of mugs over here. I'm going to go ahead and grab my mug out really quickly. It's wrapped in bubble wrap and then this like plastic, so just take all that off. I usually will keep the bubble wrap to like put it back into if I'm gifting it, mostly because I ship a lot because I don't live close to a lot of my friends and family. So what I do, this is how I got my measurements. I just take this, and so I wouldn't want to go, you can see once you start hitting that curve, you don't want to go too big. And there's like a rule of thumb, if you're holding it, like how much of this are you going to see? You know, so 3 by 3 is pretty standard, 3 inches high by 3 inches wide. So that's why I went with 3 inches high. Now, really super important when using anything with infusible ink is clean it well. So I'm going to lint roll. I have a lint-free cloth. You can use rubbing alcohol, but be super careful that it's really dry before you put it in that mug press with that heat on it. Okay, so I already can tell that I am getting a lot of this off, but a lot of the lint you're not going to see, but it will come up as like blue dots in your design or on your mug if you don't clean it well. So clean it and set it aside. And then I'm going to grab my infusible ink. So infusible ink, just like HTV, this is the shiny side. It went down on my mat. I'll grab that quickly to show you guys. So shiny side down on your mat. Okay, color side up. And I know it looks really dull here, and that's something I wanted to show you guys is, see how it's really dull there, but like look at the color difference. Show you guys. We got some shadows in here today. So you can see the color difference is pretty crazy. That's because the ink is heat activated, so the ink, the color isn't going to really pop until it's pressed. Because it is heat activated. So I took out most of the little dots just to make it easier. I want to show you guys, when you do infusible ink, you crack and peel. That is how you weed it. You don't use a weeding tool, you crack and peel. So you want to kind of just push it like this, grab that little dot out. I'm going to throw it in the trash. And I always throw I do little pieces first so it doesn't accidentally get stuck on my carrier sheet, because anything that gets stuck on your carrier sheet is pressing and this ink is permanent. So I will use a weeding tool just to help me pull up this corner here to start my weeding process, okay? So I do use it to pull that up. Now you can see I have 2 of the Cricut heat press mats here. They're both the 8x10 ones. I have my mug press on it to protect my surface from the heat. And then when my mug comes out, it's going to be super hot. And I need to wait until it cools to peel off everything. Just like HTV, Cricut HTV is a cold peel. This is the same with infusible ink. So I'm going to set my mug on here while it cools. So also it has a nice heat surface. So I cracked this a bunch beforehand. You're just going to kind of, you'll hear it crack a little bit. So then you just peel it off. So it is kind of papery, and you want to make sure you don't scratch the ink or you don't have oils on your hands, because that is going to affect the ink. So you want to make sure that you don't have any of that on your hands while you're weeding or touching the ink. I have long fingernails, so a lot of this I can kind of just use my fingernail to hold down. You can use gloves while weeding if that makes you feel better. I have done that before. Okay, so you can see the light screen. That means I'm ready to press. Okay. So I'm just going to finish weeding, and you can see that there's a couple areas where like the paper's still stuck, like right here and right up here. So that is actually not going to have any effect on your final pressing design, but if it makes you feel more comfortable, you can just kind of peel this back and peel it off a little bit. It's not a big deal. Okay, So now that we have that done, I'm going to take my mug. And something to consider is the person right-handed or are they left-handed? How are they going to hold the mug? Which way do you want this to face? My friend is right-handed, so I'm going to put the mug on this side, or the design on this side. So I'm going to kind of put this at an angle so I can see better. But we're going to just line this up how we want it to go, and we're going to stick it on. Now, this carrier sheet is sticky. You can see, yes, it's sticky, but be careful because that sticky might change as this is heated. So I'm going to put some Cricut heat resistant tape on here. This is just the standard standard strength, not the strong grip for the mugs. Okay, so I'm making sure too that my tape is not covering any of my ink. If I put this tape over this, it's going to leave a mark there, and this isn't going to fully press. So you want to make sure you do that. Now, you got butcher paper in with your infusible ink. If you are doing the mugs with the markers, you want 3 layers of butcher paper. I'm not, and honestly, you really don't need to do the butcher paper, but I have like this huge phobia that I'm going to burn stuff, so I always put butcher paper around my design too. So I'm just going to cut some down. Cricut does sell butcher paper separately too, so like if you're doing the coasters and you need butcher paper, you can buy it separately. So what I do is I take the bottom, like straighter side, not the side that I cut, that is definitely not straight, and I line it up over my mug, and I try to get this just really close to the handle here, so I hope you guys can see this. And I tape it down, and then I grab another piece of tape, and I carefully just make sure this is all covered, and I line this up around here, and we'll just cut off this excess right here, and tape it down, make sure we're good to go. So I'm just going to slide it right in, and then I'm going to push that down. It does take a little bit of elbow grease, but stick it right down. So what I'm going to do is let that go, and right before it's about done, I will come back with you guys. So you can see this little dot right here is lit up. Once we get to this last dot, it's going to be ready. It's going to beep for us. So I'll come back right before it's done just so you guys can hear that beep. We'll take it out. I'm going to put it right on here, let it cool, and then I'll come back and peel with you guys. It takes about 20 to 30 minutes for it to fully cool. You want it fully cool or you'll have ghosting, the ink won't transfer correctly, and you don't want any of that. Okay, so you guys can see this is beeping. We're all done. All my lights were lit up. We're just going to carefully pull it out. Remember, this is extremely hot and the mug is extremely hot. So we're just going to leave it here. I did forget to mention that it takes about 4 minutes to heat up the mug total. It's roughly 4 minutes. So keep that in mind just so you know how long it's going to take for each mug. And then we're going to let this cool, like I said, about 20-30 minutes. Now, this is on the mat here, and I usually take it into a separate room so it's not, super, super hot. Let it cool down a little bit more, and then when that's done, we'll come back and we'll peel it. Okay, so my mug is now cool. I'm going to move this to the side just a little bit so we have more light and room here. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to start by peeling this tape off for our butcher paper. We're going to get our butcher paper off. Okay. And then we'll peel our design. So we're going to start with our tape. On either side, and then we'll go ahead and we'll peel the design. And I do have a little scrap of the infusible ink right here that I wanted to get to show you guys. Whoops. just wanted to show you quickly a reminder that we have the differences in the color. So let me see. I'm just trying to get a good angle for you guys. I have so many shadows in here today. Okay, so now that we've got this, we're just going to we're going to peel this carrier sheet right off. Now sometimes you might get these stuck on here like this. They're going to come right off, so don't even worry about that. Typically what I do, if they don't come off like that, I'll just put this carrier sheet down and I'll just kind of flick them off so they get stuck on here. And then we have our mug. So I just want to show you guys, see the color difference here? I mean, it's such a big difference once that ink is pressed and activated. Right? If you have any questions, let me know.